For some countries, there is such a huge pressure on water supply that they're fighting about it. The Middle East, dry, parched, barren. It has been an area of conflict for over 50 years, and the rivalries of nations in this region have led to outright war. Fighting in this area hasn't been solely over land. They're also fighting over the lifeblood of the desert, water. The Middle East has a few rivers and a few springs, but water is very scarce. Most of the available water comes from underground lakes, aquifers, and competition for this water is fierce. Just after the Second World War in 1948, the State of Israel was created, and tension in the area has always been high. So tense that in 1967, the forces of Syria, Egypt and Jordan united against their new neighbour in total all-out war. After the battle came to an end, Israel had gained more territory, which meant that they now had control of part of Egypt, part of Jordan, and a small part of Syria.
The war is over. The Israel Defense Forces were victorious on all fronts.
Even after decades of argument, Israel still maintains control over most of this territory. But the battle lines are still drawn. Hostility is not only over the land, but the water under it. Under one of the disputed territories, the West Bank, lies a huge aquifer which runs east to west. There has been constant conflict over access to its water. 1/3 of Israel's water comes from the West Bank aquifer. In order to retain this land and its water, controversial settlements were built by the Israelis in the disputed territory. Palestinian towns and villages sit alongside the new settlements, but they are short of the modern facilities of their Israeli neighbours. Even in large towns, water tankers are often the only source of supply. Tension between Palestinian and Israeli over drinking water is not the only problem. As in most arid areas of the world, nearly 80% of Israel's water is used for agriculture. Palestinians would like to develop their farming, yet on the West Bank, old, beautiful but basic irrigation systems feed their farms. Without new sources of water, that is how they will stay. But Israel leads the world in dry land farming technology. It has quite literally made the desert bloom. Cash crops grow like avocados, melons and grapes, all made possible by water-conserving techniques like drip irrigation. But in the end, the precious underground water remains limited. As we look to the future of the Middle East, the Palestinian-Israeli peace process continues. For over 20 years, the two nations have been struggling to reach some sort of settlement. But they are both still trying to resolve their differences and come to an agreement over access to the land and to the water, which is acceptable to all sides. Water is definitely a precious resource, one which water-wealthy countries take for granted. Water-rich countries can sell this resource to water-poor countries, and it's so precious that, as we've seen, it can set neighbour against neighbour. Experts believe that in the 21st century, water will be the main battleground. but is it worth fighting for? Some countries are trying to reach a sensible solution. Israel is now looking to find cheaper methods of desalination to solve its water worries, and some Gulf states are considering schemes as unusual as towing icebergs from the South Pole. But whatever happens, some of us need to use less. With a growing global population consuming more and more water, it's important not to waste it. If everyone in the UK did something as simple as turning off the tap while they cleaned their teeth, they would save over 200 million litres of water every day.
How can water be saved?
Can individuals make a difference?
Will there ever be access to clean water for all?
The people in the cities waste a lot of water, and then there's none left for us. Sometimes they use too much water. There's a lot of wastage.
Water is difficult to get round here. Our farms only get water at certain times of the day, and there are so many people who need the water that we start arguing about it. I'd love to be able to bring the water directly onto my farm and use it whenever I need it. That would help me and my fields.
In Greece and in other countries, I think we should be far more careful about how much water we actually use. It's not that I think we should use any less water, but what we really need to do is respect and protect our natural sources of water, and then they can be handed down to the next generation.
I've no idea how much water is consumed in Bulgaria. I know that I'm using more, and in this sense I think that perhaps water consumption will increase.
I don't use much water already, but if I could reduce it even further, I'm happy to do so.
In the future, we should use less water. It's a renewable resource. How do we know that it won't run out one day?
One in 8 species of the world's plants is at risk of extinction.
Environmentalists say the world's forests are disappearing at an alarming rate.
A 16-year-old British girl has gone to India to try to persuade the government to do more to save the tiger.